a.k.a. Daniel. Okay. Okay, we'll start kind of right here. Who is wise and understanding among you? And we talked about that means that somebody's an expert in their field. Wise and understanding is not just having wisdom and understanding. So if you're going to claim to be an expert teacher or an expert, someone who's going to speak God's word, if you're going to be an expert at it, if you're going to be skilled at it, then he says, let him show that by good conducts, that his works are done in meekness of wisdom. And so what he's telling us here is step forward. If you're claiming to be like this expert teacher, if you're planning to be skilled in the word, then you step forward so that we can see who you are, and then we can determine where you are actually a skilled and expert because of your works, your good conduct. And we talked a little bit about conversation in the King James Version. And I said that's a great word, but it's misunderstood today because when you say conversation, that's just somebody talking. But what the King James word means there in conversation is your whole life. You're talking a sermon, you're preaching a sermon, you're teaching a sermon every single day of your life. So when you go out there, one of the ways they say, are you trained? Are you an expert teacher? If you are, then let your life show it. And basically is what's been saying here. So, but if you have, now the next verse is, but if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. We talked about bitter was harsh. Envy was when somebody has a negative feeling over somebody that's successful or they've got achievements and things. And so this envy here is, well, you're successful and you got this, I deserve this, I want this, and give it to me. I'm deserving of this too, God. You should be giving me and blessing my life like that. And so this success and achievements was achieving, when they had these achievements, these people were jealous. They were envious of that. And then kind of reminds me of the story of David and Saul. I mean, Saul just loved David. I mean, he first called for him, he was kind of a little down and out, and so they needed somebody to lift him up, and so he called for David because David could play the harp, and he played it really, really well. And so when he hit it, you heard about it, he got all, he just felt all warm inside, and all of that pressure and stuff went away from him. So he asked Jesse, his father, said, let him stay here in the palace with me. And so he convinced Jesse, his father, to do that. And then after a while, Saul would send David out on these military missions, so to speak, and when he did, he would sit there. David, was very successful in these campaigns and military campaigns he went out. So eventually when he came back in, they would sit there and they'd go, Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s. And guess what that caused? Jealousy, envy. And so next time he called him in to play the harp when he was kind of a little bit depressed, what did he try to do? He threw a spear at him. He said, I was going to pin him to the wall. And I can just imagine this right now. Saul goes, well, hey, I'm a pretty good shot. I know I can throw a spear. I'm a mighty man when it comes to war, and something that close, I shouldn't have a problem of hitting it. But I missed him. So what was the conclusion? He did it twice. He tried twice and missed him both times. And so the conclusion about that was God must be with him. And God is with him, but he's not with me no more. That was his whole idea and whole thinking. So that just shows you where envy and jealousy can lead to. I mean, Saul loved David. And from that love there, from him loving David like that, he went into a point of so much jealousy, so much envy, that he was going to kill him, pin him to the wall. And then when he realized that God was with him, with David, and not Saul, then that even made him that more. So for the rest of the time, pretty much Saul sought out to kill David. And David had many, many opportunities to kill Saul, but he never did. So the only thing that story has to do with that is you got to be careful with envy and jealousy, because you may not think that it will lead to murder, but it will, even to someone that he loved so so much and was dear to him. And then it says, self-seeking in your hearts. This is where somebody's just worried about them and themselves only. They don't care about nobody else. They're selfish. They only want what they want. They don't. If you got something, they'll even take that. That's the kind of hearts that they had. And we just got through kind of talking about the tongue, which all this kind of relates, because it's all about self-controlling the body and self-controlling the members. But here, they had a cardiology problem. They had a heart problem. They needed to go see a cardiologist. And so here you see they had bitter envy, harsh envy. He was very jealous. These people were self-seeking, only cared about themselves. And their problem was in their heart. And it says, do not boast and lie against the truth. These people were so against these that were, I guess basically one of these things is once they step forward, and kind of James said, step forward to be your expert teacher. The question was like, do you have bitter envy? Do you have jealousies over other people that can do this job and is skilled at it? Are you self-seeking? Are you trying to, no matter what, you're going to teach and you want to consider yourself up there with them. And here's the other part. Do not boast against the truth. What these were willing to do and how far they were willing to go was, if I knew something on Daniel and I knew that it was, the truth, that he was say he was a great man. Well, what I'm wanting to do and what they were doing was by boasting. They were building themselves up, but the purpose of it wasn't so much to build themselves up. It was to make Daniel look bad, so I could look good. But the ultimate thing was, I'm going to tell a lie, and I'm willing to tell a lie in order to make Daniel look bad. It may be something that he was true, something that's true about what he's saying, but I'm going to lie about it. And so that I can make myself look better and make him look worse. And that's to the point, and that's where they were at in this part right here and at this stage. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and ever evil things are there in verse 16. So you see, we talked about Saul and David, and you can see what can happen when you start talking about envious and when you start talking about jealousy and just thinking that you're the one and you're the only one that matters, and you don't care about anybody else. What's going to happen is that's going to bring about confusion, and it's going to bring about every kind of evil that you can think of. Murder, conceit.
These things that don't seem like all that bad, but much. But by the time it's finished, you're liable to do anything. Saul didn't start out trying to kill David, but look where he ended up.
Yeah, and even to, that was my point too. He even loved him. I mean, you'd have to read it there to see how much he just loved him and what kind of raving we go on about him. And then next thing you know, he's throwing a spear at him, trying to pin him to the wall and trying to kill him. And he spent the rest of his life pretty much trying to do that. And then, for I fear lest, this is 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and 20. And this is a description Paul has to these brethren at Corinth. He said, for I fear lest when I come, I shall not find you as such as I wish, and that I shall be found by you such as you do not wish, lest there be contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, backbitings, whisperings, conceits, tumults. I mean, there's your description of what can happen once we get to the point where we get so jealous and we're trying to make ourselves look so good that we'll start lying. And all these other things we see here is the result of that. This is the fruits of those things that we looked at and that you'll see that caused. So let me. Okay, how come wait a minute, I am. Okay, this wisdom doesn't come from above. So that's, it's earthly, sensual, demonic. It's definitely not from God. It doesn't come from man. This is a human philosophy, and it's rather, you can see how Satan works and this type of wisdom. That if it's not from above, it has a really drastic and terrible effect on all mankind. So this is what kind of wisdom that is. When you look at what kind of wisdom did Saul have? He had earthly, sensual, demonic. What kind of wisdom do these people that we're talking about now, that we're describing now, what kind of wisdom they have? The earthly, sensual. It's not from above. And it's not from God. It's from Satan himself. And you can see a great big comparison here and a contrast here between what we've seen in verse 13 and then what we've seen in verse 14. And you see the reason why here in verse 15, because that type of wisdom is not from above. It's earthly. So, okay, now then, let's look at the other word. When you see the word but in verse 17, the very first thing it starts, when you see the word but there, especially if you're one that marks your Bible and things like that, I would always circle but and have an arrow pointing one way and an arrow pointing the other way, because it's a contrast between what you just looked at. When it says but, this is what it was and this is what it is. And so, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, and it's peaceable, it's gentle, it's willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits. It's without partiality and it's without hypocrisy. And that's the wisdom from above. And what a difference that one is from the one that we just talked about that was earthly and sensual and demonic. It starts out by saying this wisdom that comes from above is, first of all, it's pure. And that means like holy and chaste. And the idea is that Mark and we always talk about this when you talk about gold and silver, is it's this gold and stuff has been put in the furnace, and it's put in the furnace, and it's put in the furnace, and it's, you know, it's held to this high degree until finally, when you take it out, what is left is pure gold. And same thing with the process that you go through with silver. What's left after you put it in the furnace, and you put it in the furnace, and you put it in the furnace, put it in the furnace, eventually it's 100% pure silver. It doesn't have no contaminants with it. It's not mixed up with a lot of other metals and stuff. It's pure. Wisdom that comes from above is holy. It's pure. It doesn't contain contaminants. It doesn't contain anything like that. That wisdom, that's what it looks like. Compared to the wisdom that's earthly, that's a whole different world, because it was anything but holy. And it's anything but chaste and pure. And then the next thing that the wisdom from above is, it's peaceable. And that word peaceable means it's sort of like somebody that crochets or knits and stuff. It's woven together. It's joined together. So that's the kind of wisdom that you want. It's trying to bind people together. They have a binding for God. Their life is woven together with God. It's binded together with God. And therefore, how are you going to treat other people? You're not going to lie about them. You're not going to go in and do all kinds of, be envious of them and do things like that. What you're going to have is that peaceable, that woven together, that concern for somebody else, and that love for somebody else. And then it says, the next thing it says that it is gentle. And let me look at. And gentle, this is more like don't want to think too highly of yourself type idea. It's really more like humble. And I think some of the translation has, reads humble there. So, and then this pure religion this pure wisdom that comes from above is also willing to yield. Willing to yield is, the other one wasn't willing to yield to nothing. If you got earthly, sensual, demonic wisdom, that wisdom doesn't yield to nobody. It only concerns itself, and I'm right and you're going to be wrong no matter what it is, because I'm going to look good and you're not going to look. I'm not going to make you look good. So willing to yield carries with the idea of submission. You're going to submit yourself to God. It's going to carries with the idea of being submissive to brothers and sisters in Christ. And when you yield into God, and when you're willing to yield to God and to man, you're willing to say, maybe I was wrong on that. And when you got earthly wisdom, there's no admitting I'm wrong on anything. It's all about I'm always right and you're wrong. This willing to yield is saying, if God says something in His Word, and then I'm going to look at it and maybe realize, hey, I wasn't right about that. And so you're willing to change your mind or change your life or whatever that you need to do. And that's also true not only if you see it in the Word of God, but if a brother or sister points that out to you and you can see from the Word of God, well, that's true, then you're willing to make amends. You're willing to say, I was wrong about that. So that's the kind of wisdom that's pure, that's from above. And then it's full of mercy. God showed us so much mercy. Mercy is something that you deserve but you don't get. And I can only always think of Romans 6:23 when I think of this. For the wages of sin is death. That means that what I've earned and what I've deserved is eternal separation from God. That's what I've earned and deserved. That's my paycheck. That's my paycheck. That's what I've, when I work my 40-hour week and I get my paycheck is eternal separation from God. That's what I deserve and that's what I've earned. But that's not what we got. And the reason why we didn't is because God's mercy. And so that's what a wisdom that is full from above is full of. I'm willing to extend mercy to you. That's not the earthly, central demonic wisdom. That's not what it does. It doesn't do that. But this wisdom from God, it does. And it has good fruits. Can't help have good fruits because you're obeying God. You're listening to what God has to say. So what else are you going to produce from that? You're going to produce God-like living. And that's what James asked him to do at the very beginning. If you're this expert, if you're this skilled teacher, step forward. And when you step forward, how am I going to know that you're this expert at this teaching? Well, the way I'm not going to know that is the way you live, your life, your conduct. And this is what this is saying here. You're going to be full of good fruits. You're going to have good conduct. You're going to have what the King James Version says, conversation. There, your manner of life is going to be good. And so it's going to produce good fruits. And without partiality and without hypocrisy, you're not going to show partiality. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, green, purple. It doesn't matter if you're poor or rich. It doesn't matter about any of that. Because pure wisdom that comes from above is not looking at that. They're looking at the person themselves. And hypocrisy, when you think about hypocrisy in the Bible, the opposite of it is sincere. Hypocrisy basically is, you know how an actor takes on a part and people start hating that person? That's an actor that's playing that part. I mean, they'd like to kill me when Denzel Washington played a bad cop, because he's always playing the good parts and you always love and stuff. And then when he played that bad part, I'm going like, no, that can't be. See, if you ain't careful, you start associating the part that he's playing with the person. And that's not who he is. That's what hypocrisy is. You're playing a part. That's not you. That's not real. Robert?
We need to draw a distinction between weakness, spiritual weakness, and inconsistency versus hypocrisy. Hypocrisy has the intention to deceive. The other person, say if somebody's trying to break a bad habit, they may be inconsistent, but that's not being hypocritical. The hypocrite is one who is intending to deceive, trying to make people think they are something that they're not. And so that we need to make sure we draw that distinction.
Yes, that is correct. One more thing about peaceful, since I'm on this, I can't help but this like living in harmony. It's kind of the idea here about the peaceful too. And every single time I think about that, I can't think, especially if you're in the sound booth, and Robert and them can maybe testify to this. When you hear singing out here, it probably sounds a lot different up there than it does out here. I don't know why, but when you hear like an alto, you hear a soprano going in, then the next thing you know, you add the alto in, and then the next thing you add the bass. There's songs where they pick up like that you just hear the soprano. Then next thing they add in is alto, and the next thing is bass. The tenor, and next thing's alto. I want to tell you something. When you up there, I get chills. Because when they come together, that's harmony. And harmony at a high level. And it makes my skin crawl up there. Because it's so beautiful. And it has brought tears to my eyes. Especially when I hear some altos up here on the front. And some songs. Man. I mean, I want to tell you. That's what he's trying to tell us about peaceable. You know, be in harmony with God and with one another. And if you're in harmony with God like you're supposed to be, then you'll be in harmony with your mankind, with your fellow man. Okay. All right, change. Okay, come on. It's changed up there, but it ain't changed over here. Okay. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. This looks kind of strange, because we're talking about fruit of righteousness. The fruit's not what you sow. You sow a seed, and then the seed produces something, so it looks kind of weird the way this is put. But we learn in Luke chapter 8 and verse 11, when you sow a seed, that's the Word of God. And then you also, when you sow a seed, it's how you're born again. And 1 Peter 1 and 23, it says, we are born again of an imperishable seed, and that is the Word of God. The Word of God creates that right relationship between God and man and God. So what you're going to get, instead of confusion, God's not the author of confusion. So what you're going to get when you have this pure wisdom that comes from above, what you're automatically going to get is righteousness. And that's going to be the fruit that you're going to get. And it's also what you're going to get is peace. You're not going to have all this confusion and all this things that goes on in life from that earthly, sensual, demonic type. And then that's where he's going to lead into chapter 4, is we're going to see that this peace that we have because of this wisdom that is from above and this righteousness that we have, what a contrast to chapter 4 from those who, when we look at what it's, okay, oh, it's changing up there. I'm looking at my screen here instead of looking up there because it's a whole lot of difference. The next section, we'll just kind of introduce it. It's talking about mature Christians choose friendships carefully. And this is probably not like a friendship that you're thinking about. It's because when you think of friendships, you think of, well, the people that you associate with and who you have that you're friends with. And so many of our Christian brothers and sisters here are friends because of the relationship that they have with God. And so the main idea here is, are you a friend of God, or are you a friend of the world? And that's basically what we're going to be looking at. Mature Christians choose the friendship with God. And then this other ones whose wisdom is based upon the earthly, sensual, demonic, they choose the world. And that's where their friendship is with the world. It starts out, where do wars and fights come from among you? And so this idea really of war, these two words here, wars and fights, the first wars that's mentioned there is usually a battle or conflict with a weapon. The next word that's used is fights. That's a battle or a conflict or whatever without a weapon. And that's usually how they are. But why is there wars and fights among them? Whether this is a literal war, it doesn't matter either way, whether this is a literal war that they're having with the Romans or the heathens, or if this is just a battle that's going on within themselves. What's causing it, according to this? Okay. Go ahead. It's desires within. You know, for our pleasure, desires for pleasure. This, the word desires here is usually, it's like connected, what is it, hedonism? Where you only care about having pleasure? Hedonism. That's kind of the word for it. It's the only thing you care about is satisfying yourself for whatever, whether it's anything that you can have pleasure in. That's my aim. That's my goal. That's what I want to achieve, and you don't care about anything else. And so that being what it is, then when you talk about warring in your members, this members is really like these wars, you know, they have the general and then they have a bunch of little army men that follow in these general. The members is really basically like little devil things that's inside of you, that they're your army people. They're the army that's fighting against you, that's battling against you. But we'll talk more about that next week and see how that fits in. Thank you very much.